Hey all you tricksters, welcome back to the channel for another great eShop deals video. Without a doubt, this summer sale has the absolute best deals that I have ever covered on this channel. So strap in, we've got some amazing deals. And a quick side note, I do apologize for the lack of content, but I was away with my family on a little bit of a vacation for about 10 days, and I'm back and I'm excited to make more great Switch video content for you. So first of all, we have a duo of two really rock-solid 3D platformer games. We have new Super Lucky's Tale and A Hat in Time. I'm not going to go into the stories for both of these, just know that they are very rock-solid, a lot of fun if you're nostalgic for that late 90s, early 2000s style platformer. If I had to choose one over the other, I think I would take new Super Lucky's Tale, only because the Switch performance is a tad bit better. A Hat in Time does occasionally have some frame rate issues, nothing that's going to break the game or make the experience bad. I just think that new Super Lucky's Tale is a really impressive port that runs beautifully. But it's actually a bit humorous because both of these games had their original release date about a month apart. They both have a 76 on Metacritic, and they're both on sale for $15. So really, I think it's almost kind of a coin toss which one you choose. Next, we have the Swords of Ditto. Swords of Ditto is a really awesome action RPG, very much a Zelda-style game. It does have a rogue-like element to it, though. Essentially, you are the hero of legend within this world, and you are, of course, going on your quests, your missions, collecting loot. But when you die, I think it's a fairly long period of time, maybe even 1,000 years will pass, and then you will return back as a new hero of legend. And then as that hero, you will revisit the lands that have now kind of changed and look a bit different, and you will have to try to seek out the previous hero's loot and gear. So it does have that roguelike element where, again, is a permadeath for your character, but then you come back. I don't know if I would describe it that much like a roguelike, though. Roguelikes, I think you usually feel like death is going to come a little more frequently. You can go a pretty long time in this game without ever dying, but it does have that element of permadeath, but then coming back, refining your character's loot. But the standout for me in this game has got to be the art style. It is hand-drawn and it is drop-dead gorgeous. Every screen is just amazing to look at. It's a non-stop feast for the eyes, if you will. Most importantly, though, it's at its lowest price ever, 60% off for $5.99. An amazing price for this game. All right, next we have Flinthook. This is a much more traditional style roguelike, a roguelike platformer. You play as a little space pirate, you're making your way into these ships, looting them, stealing amazing space treasure. The fun little mechanic in this game, though, is that you do use a grappling hook to get around. So you're really going to be zipping around these levels. There's also a really cool slow motion mechanic so that while you're zipping around, you can activate that slow motion and take out enemies with real precision. This really is a fantastic action platformer roguelike. This actually comes from Tribute Games. They are the same devs that just released the new Ninja Turtles game, and they also made the amazing Panzer Paladin. Trust me, they have a rock-solid pedigree. Everything they make, in my opinion, is absolute gold, including this game. And right now, Flinthook is matching its previous low for 50% off for $7.49. Next, we have Dawn of the Monsters. I took a look at Dawn of the Monsters on this channel not too long ago. You can check out that full gameplay video if you're curious. But very simply, this is a kaiju-themed beat-em-up. And yes, it is as amazing as that sounds. So you choose between either some Jaeger-style robots or some really cool kaiju that your organization has taken control of. And you're going through all these different locations, beating up on the other kaiju. There's some really great leveling up systems. It is just an absolute blast. This might be, I think, one of the best games of this year. And yes, as a fairly new release, this is the first sale, and it's really a rock-solid sale in my opinion. It is at 30% off, so that brings it down to $20.99. And Dawn of the Monsters is actually one of the few indie games that I would say a $30 price tag is actually reasonable for. So yeah, even at $20.99, I think that's an amazing deal. I think you should definitely consider checking this one out. Again, you could always wishlist it and wait for a cheaper sale, but it is absolutely worth that price. Moving on, I'm going to talk to you about a trio of cooperative/competitive couch co-op games. All three of these are games that my kids love, so I'm really excited to talk to you about them. The first one is Ultimate Chicken Horse. Ultimate Chicken Horse is a competitive platforming game. But the way it works is you play the game in rounds, and in each round, a mystery box will open, and there will be multiple different platforming items that you will choose from. And then you take these platforming items and there's a small little time frame where you can choose where you want to put it on the level. And then the round starts and then you play as whatever character you've chosen. And you are going to try to make your way through these platforming levels to get to the finish line. Generally speaking, as the round starts, it's nearly impossible to get to the finish line for anyone. But as the rounds continue, you keep adding new elements, including new hazards. And so eventually the goal is for some people to make it, but not everyone. Because if everyone makes it, no one gets any points. But as long as just 1 or 2 or 3 out of the 4 people make it, they will receive points. This game is hilariously fun, and the icing on the cake is that it actually has rock solid online play. And I can tell you that my son and I will frequently jump on and play online with other people, and I've never had problems finding matches that are full. Ultimate Chicken Horse is matching its previous low price for 50% off for $7.49. You are going to get hours and hours and hours of fun out of that price. Another one of my kids' favorite games to play with me is Heave Ho. And Heave Ho, you play as these little blob kind of characters, and they have long gangly arms. And the whole goal is to use these long gangly arms that are controlled by the right and left triggers on your controller, and you are making your way, dangling and grabbing onto obstacles, making your way to a finish line on a level. There's also a versus competitive mode that works a little bit differently with some different sort of mini game modes. But this one is an absolute blast with friends or family. You're really going to get a lot of laughs out of it. There's a really strong element of wanting to help each other, so you'll grab onto each other, but it's really difficult to know who should let go and who should keep holding on. So you'll have a lot of moments where people are kind of yelling at each other, getting frustrated, but really it's actually a very fun frustration. This is a party game that we come back to frequently, my family, though, and we have a blast every time. But most importantly, it is at its new lowest price ever for 60% off for only $3.99. Out of the party games that I'm mentioning, I think this is the absolute one that you should buy first. The deal is amazing, and you're going to get a lot of fun out of it. The third couch competitive game that I want to recommend to you is Gang Beasts. Gang Beasts is just an absolutely hysterical, physics-based sort of wrestling game, I guess. But you choose your character, you're put into one of multiple different really wacky levels. Some of the levels are moving, you might be on a blimp or on a train. Some of them are just in some really unique locations with some really cool obstacles and hazards. But the general idea is that you are just wrestling with your characters. Your characters have the ability to grab onto each other and then try to shove each other off. It sounds aggressive, but it's really just goofy, silly fun of everyone yelling at each other. You're trying to throw some character into a grinder or off the side of a lighthouse. This is another one that actually has online play, and I don't know about the Switch version, but I know the Xbox version I've always been able to find people to play with. So I haven't played online yet on the Switch version, so I can't say for certain, but online play, in my experience, has been rock solid and a ton of fun, and there's a devoted community that's always on there. I would like to stress, though, that out of all 3 of the party games I've just mentioned, I think this one, more than any of them, really does require having other people to play with to really actually get some enjoyment. I would never want to play this single player. I think it does have CPU players you can play against, but that would just seem like a total bore fest to me. But yeah, as long as you got some people that are like-minded and want to have a really goofy fun with you, you're going to have a blast with this one. I actually think Gang Beasts is a little bit overpriced normally, but thankfully it is at its new lowest sale price ever for $17.99. That is 40% off the normal price. The next game I want to recommend to you now is Minit. Minit is a Zelda-like top-down adventure game, but the gimmick here is that your character only stays alive for a minute. So every time there's a timer counting down 60 seconds, your character dies and goes back to the beginning where he starts. So a lot of this adventure, you're going to be trying to go in a different direction each time you revive to try to find the item that you needed and try to figure out the order in which you need to go. Now, I know off the top, it probably sounds like a bit of a headache with the time limit. Just know that you will unlock different fast travel points that will allow you to get further quicker so that you don't have to deal with the frustration of that 60-second time limit. It actually sounds like it'd be a frustrating gimmick at first, but it really is compelling the way it works. And there's some really cool twists with the story that kind of reflect why this is happening to your character. Minit is matching its previous low price for 60% off for $3.99. I think that's the perfect price for a game that's sort of like a weird artistic experiment, and I think you'll feel like that's the right deal. Next on sale, we have Katana Zero. Katana Zero, in my opinion, is probably like in the top 50 best Switch games. Katana Zero is an action platformer where you get to play as a samurai hitman. As such, you're going to be breaking into different buildings, trying to seek out these different characters and off them. But really, the game is not that simple. You find out about this sort of a hidden understory about who is controlling you. I don't want to spoil anything, but the game has some really awesome twists and turns, some really cool mid-break cutscenes where you get to talk to and interact with other characters. But the main showpiece is the combat. It's insane, it's fast, there's all kinds of cool slow motion bullet time mechanics going on. You're going to be flinging back bullets with your sword. Deaths are a one-hit kill, but you have this amazing repertoire of abilities and ways to take on really large groups of enemies. This game really truly will make you feel like an amazing samurai. Katana Zero is matching its previous low price for 40% off for $8.99. Next, we have Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This is the sequel to the first Ori game. It's one of the absolute best reviewed games on the Switch. This is an absolutely amazing Metroidvania-style platformer, possibly, arguably, the best one on the Switch, although Hollow Knight is really amazing too. But the game just runs amazingly on the Switch. And yes, it is a 2D game, but there are all kinds of amazing 3D elements in the background. The animation is super smooth. It has an amazing soundtrack. It really is a showcase of what a developer can get out of a Switch game if they optimize it perfectly. Do not sleep on this deal though. Ori is currently 40% off for $17.99. Again, one of the absolute best reviewed games on the Switch. Next, we have Spelunkey 2. If you're not familiar with Spelunkey, I would say Spelunkey is the OG platformer roguelike experience. But in Spelunkey 2, it builds on its predecessor, and it's arguably that much better. But you choose a character, you make your way into these caves, finding treasure and loot, taking on all kinds of enemies. Be forewarned, the Spelunkey games, they look colorful and friendly, but they are freaking tough as nails. I really think this is a game series that's really meant for people who want their games to be punishingly difficult. If you love that satisfaction of white-knuckling a controller and taking on a game with whatever it can throw at you, then Spelunkey 2 is going to be perfect for you. And Spelunkey 2 is now at its lowest price ever for 40% off for $11.99. Again, this is another game that I think actually is worth its full price, but this just sweetens the deal. The next game I want to recommend is The Tourist. This is kind of a difficult game, honestly, to explain what it is. I guess you would just say it's an adventure game. You are island hopping, searching out the mysteries of these different monuments. With The Tourist, though, variety is the name of the game. It's just insane the number of different things you get to do. You'll be flying drones. You'll be visiting an arcade, playing retro-style games. You'll be spelunking down a cave for treasure. You'll be diving for treasure. You'll enter a surfing contest. You will set up the lighting for a party. Really, this game is just non-stop variety. I promise you, you will never get bored playing this game. Also, The Tourist, it runs perfect. It's 1080p, 60 frames per second. It is buttery smooth and beautiful the whole time. This is definitely one of my favorite Nintendo Switch sort of cult classics or sleeper hits, if you will. Most importantly, though, The Tourist is at its new lowest price ever for 40% off for $11.99. It's an amazing game for that price. Next, we have Rising Hell, which is another action platformer roguelike. The plot of this game is quite simple. It's in the title. You are making your way out of the depths of hell. I've actually mentioned this game before. It's really solid. It is a bit on the short side, so it's a kind of a budget price game to begin with. Thankfully, it is at its new lowest price, though, for 60% off for only $3.99. So if you really enjoy a platformer roguelike with some really crunchy combat, you're really going to enjoy this one. Next, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, the Complete Edition. I don't feel like I've got to say a lot about The Witcher 3. I think most people are probably pretty familiar with what this is. It is a massive, big, open-world RPG. The Complete Edition of this game is the one I'd recommend. You can buy the regular one, but it's only $10 more for the Complete Edition, and the DLC is huge and adds a lot more game. But you are easily going to spend more than 100 hours on this game, so don't purchase it unless you got a lot of time you can carve out for it. And honestly, on the Switch, it runs shockingly decent. When the game first released, it was pretty blurry, and it was okay. But since then, there have been multiple updates, and if you watch some before and after comparison videos, it's really impressive what they can get out of the Switch. Now, obviously, if you compare it side by side to the more current generation consoles, it's not going to be that favorable, but seen in isolation on the Switch, it really is impressive. So this Complete Edition is 50% off for $29.99. Like I said, there is a base version you could get for only $19.99, but I think that that's really a waste of money because it is such a great value for the DLC. Next up, we have Carrion. Carrion is sort of a reverse horror Metroidvania. But yeah, you play as this blob of flesh and tentacles and teeth, and you are making your way through this facility that you're escaping out of, and you are absolutely ripping to shreds all these scientists and soldiers who are trying to stop you. It does have that Metroidvania element where you are upgrading your character, I guess he is, and making your way further and further throughout the map. This is a fairly unique game, though. I know there are a few other games that have that sort of you get to play as the monster kind of idea. But I think it's done particularly well here. There's a lot of creative ways you can move and take out your enemies. So if you're a Metroidvania fan and you're looking for a new game to try out, I think that Carrion will really fit the bill. It's really something different for the genre. Most importantly, though, Carrion is currently at its lowest price ever for 50% off for $9.99. All right, now we are in the Caught My Eye section of the video. These are games that I have not personally played yet, but I've heard good things, so I'm going to go and recommend them to you. But since I can't talk from experience, we're going to power through these pretty fast. First, we have a real sleeper hit. It's called Phoenotopia Awakening. If you're a big fan of side-scrolling action RPGs that sort of take a lot of inspiration from Zelda 2 back on the NES, you're really going to enjoy this one. As you can see, though, this game is drop-dead gorgeous looking. The developers for this game, I think, are really underrated. This game, unfortunately, from my understanding, was a commercial failure. It really didn't do as well as they were hoping. So I'm really hoping these sales will stimulate the studio's growth, maybe hopefully help them out in the future. But yeah, everyone I've talked to that has played this gives it a wholehearted recommendation. The reviews are really solid for it. And honestly, I actually own this game, but it's been on my backlog forever and I haven't touched it yet. Sorry. Phoenotopia is at its new lowest price ever, 50% off for $9.99. You're going to get a big meaty game for that, anywhere from about 25 to 50 hours, depending on how much you want to complete. Next, we have Lego Builder's Journey. Now, a lot of Lego games just kind of seem like a little bit of more of like a kid's affair, but this is definitely a more sort of artsy game that I think is meant to appeal a little bit to an older audience. But my understanding is that you play as a father and son, and they are depicted by little brick creations, not by minifigures. And you're making your way through these sort of diorama-style levels, helping to build the path that they need to get to the end. The game is really beautiful for something as simple as just a bunch of Lego bricks put together. And I'm personally a big sucker for these sort of self-contained diorama-style games. So I'm really looking forward to trying this. I kind of thought that the initial asking price was a little high for a game that I really didn't know if I was going to enjoy or not. But right now it is at its new lowest price ever for 50% off for $9.99. I think I'm going to pick it up on this sale and I'm looking forward to trying it out. Next we have Toem, a photo adventure. This is a real quirky little black and white game where you play as this character helping other citizens, and a lot of it involves taking photographs of different things. I've had my eye on this one for a while. I don't know what it is about photography mechanics in games, but I absolutely love them. For instance, I'm not even a big Pokemon fan, but the Pokemon Snap games, I love them. Again, there's just something about trying to capture a character or an animal or whatever through a perfect photo. It's really satisfying. So I'm looking forward to this quirky little adventure puzzle game. And thankfully, it is now at its new lowest price for 40% off for $11.99. Next, we have Time Loader. This is a puzzle game that has to do with time travel. But apparently you are sending this little robot back in time to sort of avoid this family tragedy. I've heard it really is a very cool physics-based puzzle game. Noteworthy is that the game takes place in the 90s, so if you're nostalgic for that sort of style of decoration and things in the background, you're really going to like this one, I think. This is actually a very new game, so this is only the second time it's ever gone on sale. Thankfully, it is at its new lowest price for a very generous 40% off, making it only $8.99. Next, we have Later Alligator. I fully admit I am not a big fan of the old style point and click adventure games. But when I started seeing reviews of Later Alligator, I knew I was eventually going to have to pick it up. It has an absolutely amazing style of animation. Apparently the game is like a laugh-a-minute experience. The writing is super witty. It has all kinds of little mini games. The whole thing is uncovering the mystery of this event that Pat the Alligator's family is planning for him. The game just looks super charming and apparently has a really cool jazzy soundtrack to it. Just seems like the perfect game to sort of sit back and relax on an afternoon and breeze your way through. And it is at its new lowest price ever for 50% off for $8.99. Finally, we have Boomerang X. Boomerang X is a sort of arena-style first-person combat game. My understanding is that you simply wash up on this island with not much explanation of what's going on. You find a magical boomerang that has some amazing combat abilities, and you're making your way through wave-based combat scenarios. But I've heard the boomerang mechanics are really solid. What really apparently brings it to a new level is that the boomerang isn't just a weapon, but it's a form of travel. So apparently early on in the game, you actually unlock the ability to warp to your boomerang where you throw it at. So my understanding is that this game just makes you kind of feel like a god, like you were just zipping all over the place, decimating enemies. I think in motion, this game looks really good. I wasn't really impressed by screenshots, but once I started watching video clips of gameplay, I thought, man, this really looks like something unique and special. And Boomerang X is currently matching its previous low price for 40% off for $11.99. All right, get yourself comfortable because here comes the deal reel with some more amazing deals this week.
I'm on my own, broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Just stare 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares through. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Okay, Tricksters, what did you think? Let me know down in the comments below if you're thinking of picking up any of these games. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, I hope you have great gaming. Bye-bye.